If you're one who really enjoys the Treyarch narrative, the way they tell stories, well, unfortunately this year might not be the biggest for narrative-driven storytelling, simply because we're not going to be getting a campaign this year within Black Ops 4. We have multiplayer, zombies, as well as Blackout, the Battle Royale portion of Black Ops 4, but in that, we don't have a campaign, or at least not traditionally. What we've been told is that multiplayer will continue the sort of backstory that we saw from Black Ops 3, with different narratives in the specialist missions you can do as sort of training modules, but also we'll end up having some things Easter egg-wise placed in direct sight, very similar to maybe how we saw the specialist transitions within Black Ops 3. Now, for those of you guys that don't know about Black Ops 3's secret backstory to multiplayer, it's actually rather interesting. We detailed this a long while back here on the channel a couple of times, but long and short of it is that all of Black Ops 3 multiplayer was one giant simulation. All of the specialists that we saw were in a sort of combat readiness program sold to the highest bidder, and therefore their entire existence, if you will, is simply just to fight. They don't know a life outside of that simulation at that point, and so therefore, with Black Ops 4 going back in time before Black Ops 3 in terms of narrative setting, we don't really know all that much about our specialists, and some we have never even seen before that weren't in Black Ops 3. So Treyarch decided to take it upon themselves and write some backstories here with this and continue what they did with zombies for quite some time with comics and introduce our specialist characters in a sort of prequel manner via those as well. Now, as it stands right now, there are 3 readily available to read. If you go to callofduty.com/Black Ops 4/comics, you'll be able to read right there the first 3, but the interesting part is that I don't know if this is a bug or not. If you actually go and inspect the page via, say, Google Chrome Inspect Element, you can actually see the images for the Torque as well as Firebreak comics, so you can read those before they're air quote officially released. And they're actually pretty good. We'll be talking about all these here today, so we're gonna be breaking down the secret backstory information for our specialists that we have detailed to us thus far. So that said, let's just jump right into it. A little bit of the build up out of the way. The first thing that I will say is that these comics seem to be told at different times. Some are pre-DNI of Black Ops 3 and some are post-DNI of Black Ops 3. So with the game being set for Black Ops 3 between 2065 and 2070, we see some flashes that indicate earlier, such as Ruin's comic where we can see a date of 2053, and also we end up seeing some things that may just very well be before when we see Black Ops 3 take place in 2065. But we know that Black Ops 4 is theoretically taking place before Black Ops 3 and after Black Ops 2, so the timetables are just a bit jumbled with this comic series, but we can make do. The first thing, though, that we want to talk about is, I think, profits, because this, to me, has a ton of information here with this about some of the world around it, some of the character backstory, and also some characters we haven't seen anything on just yet. Right off the bat, we see the recap as to why David Wilkes, or Prophet, has an interest in cybernetic enhancements. His family died young because of a neurodegenerative disease, and he realized that mankind was so sophisticated scientifically, but were held back by their physical limitations in their body. They were essentially prisoners to their own body. So 5 years after the death of his mother, he has cybernetic arms and a DNI, linking him up with some retinal enhancements as well, so that you see him pretty much how he is in Black Ops 3. He goes to visit an old friend, Sam, and he's looking for EWR-115. For those of you guys that don't know who that is, we also know him as Reaper from Black Ops 3. And that's the first of 2 names that's dropped in this particular comic who we haven't seen in Black Ops 4 just yet, the other one being Blackjack. His friend Sam says, "Blackjack told you I knew where he was, didn't he?" Now, outside of this little setup, there's not all that much to it. They, of course, go and find and track down Reaper and end up finding him, but in the end, it's kind of a tragic way that the whole comic ends. I'll let you guys check that out for yourself so I don't spoil anything here for it, but outside of that, we only see some more story elements such as Coalescence billboards kind of advertising the DNI and the future of what we end up seeing the Humanscape being in Black Ops 3, and sort of just the pre-build up to that. But the part that was interesting to me here the most out of this was that we see the reference of Blackjack as well as Reaper. So maybe they end up coming in Black Ops 4, maybe not. Maybe they're just completely left aside and we won't see them in Black Ops 4. And chronologically with Black Ops 3, in terms of that narrative, that's when they're introduced, but interesting nonetheless. The second comic of massive interest to me is that of Torque's, and realistically there's not much substance of the Torque prequel story outside of that he's a tough Scot who loves his fish and chips, and after saving a military installation from a rebel overturn, gets to eat at his favorite place again. And also, I forgot to mention that we see the first workings of the overarching storyline from Black Ops 3 like it was nothing. We get to see that for the first time here and sort of how it actually went down. For those of you guys that don't know how the Black Ops 3 story went, again, everybody was a part of that one giant combat simulator. So we literally end up seeing this entire comic start off with one combat sequence where it looks like he's going up against Battery. He ends up getting the kill, and then we turn the page and you see him in this sort of neurological chamber and hooked up to a bunch of machines, and he's complaining about why a simulation has to feel so realistic. We pass over it like it's absolutely nothing, but we literally look at what the Winslow Accord was doing for an immersion station that later probably became that of the entire combat simulation the Black Ops 3 is set in. So to me, that is the craziest part, that it's sort of just a passing by moment, but it's the first time we've ever seen anything really of this. We had it detailed in Black Ops 3, but nothing really ever to say how it actually worked out, nothing outside of just that spy reporting back to the overarching leaders as the final transmission in Black Ops 3, saying that it was a combat simulation, but now we have some actual backstory behind this, which to me is just fascinating. So talk about hiding something in plain view, literally one page that you glance over and then think nothing of because it doesn't follow that comic storyline per se, because you end up following Torque as, again, he goes to a military installation and ends up getting overrun by rebels, and then he and his captain end up having to take everybody out and save everybody, but kind of once again, just in passing, something of massive overarching Black Ops importance just hidden in plain view in one page, and that's all we end up seeing. The next thing that I want to discuss here is a little bit of Ruin, because again, we start to now go into where it's more so just minor backstory that we can't really decipher much from, but Ruin we still have a little bit here with this. We see a real breakdown of who he is as a character in the lore, because he's haunted by a mistake that he made that led to dozens being executed in retaliation for a mission that he was on in which he had to help a prisoner break free. So in this comic, he really comes into it looking and eventually gets another chance to do the right thing and rest his demons, but the interesting parts to me come from his dialogue, which really just means that he has the same exact quote that you hear in Black Ops 4 way back in the day still, so you can't teach an old dog new tricks or whatever the saying is. And also the other interesting part is the weaponry, because firstly, of course, we end up seeing the grappling hook, which is pre-Black Ops 3 timeline and where we're at now, so pre-Black Ops 4. But one thing that's weird is that Breach is also the map that we're on here with this, which is from Black Ops 3, so again, kind of a jumbled mess in terms of the timetable of everything, unless we end up just referring back to that simulator where that's whenever it's taking place in Cairo, somewhat set between this escape mission and also when we see Black Ops 3 happen some few years later. But the big thing with weaponry that stands out to me is that we have the M8A1 from Black Ops 2 actually in plain view here for a couple of the panels of the comic. So to me, kind of just playing again into the more so era and giving us a little bit more of an explanation as to where we are in the chronological timeline, but also might be interesting to see if the M8A1 comes back as a weapon in Black Ops 4. We have the Swordfish, which is kind of a little bit like that, but of course not the M8 that everybody knows and loves, so maybe we end up seeing that come back as another burst rifle. Firebreak, we get a little bit of substance here, but not as much as the others. Again, we more so learn about the backstory of him, and we learn more about what his transmissions ended up actually detailing in Black Ops 3, where he ended up killing his abusive father by burning him to death. But we also learn a little bit more about the sort of family lore of Firebreak, because we learn that his sister also is a pyro, that they played with fire together, but then after he ends up killing his father, they get separated and he spends his entire life searching for his sister. Except whenever he finds her, she's kind of the reason why he's become obsessed with fire. It kind of works both ways where they play into each other. But again, essentially, it comes down to a very tragic ending. I don't want to actually spoil it for you, but you end up seeing that this is why he becomes obsessed with not only fire, but also a necessity to control fire, like we saw in Black Ops 3, and it's probably going to be built upon in Black Ops 4. The final comic that we were given, though, was Crash, and I'm gonna be totally honest with you, I don't know what in the world this comic was. Didn't seem to have really any substance to it as compared to the others, but it was cool because we do get to more so learn about Crash and a little bit of the backstory here at that, not necessarily tying in with an overarching story like we saw with Black Ops 3 and what these comics tie in with the other ones. Instead, we just learn a little bit about his history. He's a dropout from veterinarian school, but the closest thing that a refugee camp in Australia has to a doctor, so he goes by and helps them out and helps the people recover from any illnesses, any injuries, or anything like that. We also learned that he had a dark past with some gambling, and he owes some powerful people some decent amount of money. Hence why he might be off the grid per se, and essentially living in that refugee camp as the doctor. He goes though into town, and then we end up seeing a shootout happen after that, and so on and so forth. He kind of eventually leaves so he can protect the people of the refugee camp so that they don't come after him and them. but again, not as much substance as the others. But that is what we have in place right now for the 5 comics. We have 10 specialists, so I'm expecting within the next couple of days, maybe next week or so, we end up seeing another 3, maybe another 5 actually officially revealed. It actually might happen where we only get one new one outside of this, where they incrementally unlock other ones for you to read for free. But because we once again saw that Firebreak as well as Torque were not necessarily available unless you inspect the page itself, they might be released at a later point and only one other one added in or something like that. So curious to see how this will play out, but that's what we have right now. We got a little bit of a look at the backstory of Black Ops 4 and some of the universe of where we're at chronologically between Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 3 for Black Ops 4. So again, kind of a jumbled mess. Hopefully that doesn't get too confusing, but the big key takeaways here for me is that we end up seeing the referencing of EWR-115, aka Reaper. We also see the name of Blackjack come up once again. We end up seeing a massive portion of the installation of the combat simulator that later makes up all of Black Ops 3's multiplayer backstory. We end up seeing that Ruin has some weaponry from Black Ops 2, and of course we learn a little bit more about who he is as a character, and then so on and so forth with Firebreak and Crash following suit. So that's where we're gonna wrap it up. Right now, of course, we don't have the full picture, but rather some puzzle pieces, but again, some big points to coalescence in what we saw with Black Ops 3, and also kind of predating that now to go into the earlier workings of who our specialists really are. So we'll of course probably be able to determine more and find out even more secrets once the final couple comics are released. So that said, if you guys want to see more of this, let me know in the comments down below. As soon as they're out, of course, we can break it down and give you guys all the necessary information and backstory that you may need. I'd love to. I love these kind of things. I love that they're doing comic series with this, and so I'm all on board. Just let me know if you guys are interested in that. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Are you guys kind of shocked that we have such things hidden in plain view like the simulation for Black Ops 3 just literally as a passing page? Is there anything in particular that you are hoping to see come out of this, like more links between specialists? Whatever it may be, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. With that said, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you drop a like down below. Of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Black Ops 4. We are right on the horizon, so I'm super excited to bring you guys all that I have planned here for Black Ops 4 content. If you don't want to miss any of that, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. If you guys also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, those are the best places to get connected outside of YouTube. Practically live on Twitter and getting them more active over on Instagram, so those links are down there for you guys to check out. With that said, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys later. My name is Espresso. Take care and peace.